Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Tabia Show. Thank you so much for watching another episode. To keep up with the theme of February and it being still the month of love, and last week we talked about image and attraction. So this week I wanted to just also continue the love and share the love. And I have on today's show Arionne Yvette Williams. She is excellent. She is a public speaker, she's a minister, and she also helps women overcome heartbreaks, and she's the author as well. And her book is called Love Like I've Never Been Hurt: How to Deal with Heartbreak. So today we're going to talk about work-life balance and how to make sure that if you're in a relationship and you have heartbreak, not to have that manifest into your work life, right? And when you're building your business, your brand, and you want to make sure that, I'm going to have her talk about that. So hello, Arionne. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hello, Tabia. So glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I mean, I'm so excited about this topic, and I was about to get into it, but I'm like, Arionne is the best person to talk about this. She has a book, and that's why I brought you on the show, because a work-life balance is very important, especially for women. Having a relationship, being married, or having just that work and building a career, right, that we all want, right? But we also have to make sure that we have balance and make room for relationships as well, but make sure that they're healthy, right?
Absolutely. That's the key thing.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your background before we get into all that. Tell us a little bit about your brands, your blog, and everything.
So, okay, as Tabia said, I am Arionne Yvette Williams. I am the author of Love Like I've Never Been Hurt: How to Heal from Heartbreak. And so my book came out about a year ago. And in the book, I tell the story of what I call my toughest heartbreak. That probably happened about 4 years ago. But because, of course, we all are going to go through a heartbreak. And the thing is, I really thought that time around, you know how you go through enough relationships and you think this time, this is it. Like, we really going to make it. Like, this is it. Not realizing that I was about to experience the most difficult heartbreak I had ever been through in my 20s. And I was absolutely blindsided by it. Didn't know it was coming. Had no idea. His feelings had changed and shifted. And so what was the only blessing I would say that came, I shouldn't say the only blessing, that sounds horrible. I would say one big blessing that came out of that experience was the fact that as soon as it was over and I knew it was really over, there were some things that sort of clicked in my head and let me know that this is what I needed to do to get through it. So it was like a moment of clarity like I'd never had before. And it was like, okay, this really sucks, but life is going to go on. If I do 1, 2, 3, there were 3 specific things I felt that God gave me that helped me get through that season. And so, of course, in the book, which we'll talk about those pieces, but in the book, I share them in detail and speak through it. Because the thing is, everybody is going to go through that, but you don't have to stay stuck there. It does not have to be a lifetime sentence. You have a passion, a gift, and something that you've been created to do. And so you don't want to let anything ultimately sidetrack you and keep you from making that manifest in your life. So I just felt led. I've always been passionate about women and girls. Ever since I was a little girl, I would write programs and ideas for women and girls empowerment. Here I was 13 years old trying to figure out how to empower women. Yeah. So it's definitely a calling and a passion for me. And I'm just grateful for how all those pieces have come together, with the book. So super, super excited to share.
So before you wrote your book, so talk about a little bit about your speaking engagements and just your background. And you became a minister, right? And your background. I love it. Right. I love your background.
So I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri. When I left high school, I went to Howard University. And yes, HU. And I got my Bachelor of Science degree in Human Development, which that degree is essentially an invitation to go to graduate school. And so I knew the Lord had started to speak to me about, because I really struggled at Howard the whole time about a career path and what was next. But right before I graduated, I got some clarity and I ended up in this music ministry program randomly at Garrett Evangelical Theological Seminary, and that's a school that sits on Northwestern's campus in Evanston, Illinois. And so I go there. I'm in the music ministry program because I have a background in music. I minored in music at Howard, but I didn't expect to switch over to the Master of Divinity program. What happened was I got there and like I fell in love with the study of theology. So I switched that over, and then that's where the journey to ministry sort of started in seminary, because God had to get me in seminary before I would ever commit to going into ministry. So that's how that piece developed. And so I've been into that for quite a year. I graduated from seminary 8 years ago. I've been working in ministry, youth ministry for quite a while, but I was still seeking. Everything wasn't coming together. But then later, some speaking engagement, I started to come up, and I'll have opportunities to preach and speak all over. And one very recent one, which was probably the most notable, I was invited to be the convocation speaker at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. We know that's the oldest HBCU. So I was there in October. And then they also had me headline their women's conference, which they actually changed the name of the conference to match my book. So they changed it to the Love Like You've Never Been Hurt High Heels Conference. It was amazing.
Excellent branding opportunity.
It was great. So I did engage with a lot of the young women there on Lincoln's campus. We talked about everything related to relationships. We talked about acknowledging the pain. We talked about relationships one-on-one. We talked about how to get out of unhealthy relationships, all that stuff. So that was a great opportunity last year. So that was one. I mean, there have been some other things. Several years ago, I did have the opportunity to be a keynote speaker at the National Council of Negro Women. They had their national conference actually at National Harbor, Maryland, at the big hotel there. And so they had 3 women of different ages, and I represented young adult women, and we talked about harnessing intergenerational power. So I've kind of been at the speaking. That was 2009. Actually, Dr. Height was still alive then. So I've had some awesome opportunities. So it is an area that I'm definitely called to, that I love to share.
That sounds excellent. And so now you're an entrepreneur, you're doing your thing. I'm just so happy and proud of you as well. You're also a lady of Alpha Kappa Alpha as well. Alpha. And so I'm just so thankful for coming on the show. I think that women really can take a lot from you, especially when we talk about relationships and heartbreak. So let's talk about heartbreaks and how to overcome that obstacle, right? Because heartbreak can take a long time to kind of rebound from, right? So tell me just a little bit about heartbreak and how we can overcome that heartbreak and make sure that relationship, doesn't hinder us from building our brand, doesn't hold us back from growing our business as well.
Absolutely. So, okay, the thing about heartbreak is, as I said before, everyone is going to go through it, unfortunately, but you can make it through it. As I mentioned a little earlier, I did say that when I went through my roughest heartbreak, something sort of clicked. There were 3 things that I just knew that I had to do in order to get through it. And it really came from all my other School of the Hard Knocks experiences with relationships. And so the first thing is acceptance, or another way of saying that is acknowledgement. So if you got your heart broken, there's no way you're going to heal a heartbreak that you will not acknowledge actually occurred, right? So sometimes you'll find that you got hurt, but you'll keep on acting like nothing's changed, right? So that could take many forms. That could be kind of like either a thing where somebody's cheated on you and you know it happened and you're obviously hurt about it, but you're going to pretend it didn't really happen, so you keep on in the relationship. And that's not to say just because there is, an infidelity that you can't fix it and you can't work through it, but you need to acknowledge that this event happened, right? In order for you to deal. Otherwise, it's constantly there and it becomes like a third member of the relationship. And it's there affecting the communication, affecting intimacy, affecting your liking the person. All of that is affecting it, but you won't acknowledge it, so you can't deal with it. So you'll have a lot of people that are basically in a denial space about a heartbreak. It could be that it's actually a breakup, like that really is over, but you kind of play in that gray area, like it's not really over. We might get back together. So
we heard about the on and off relationship, right? And in that on and off relationship, that also carries its baggage as well, because I guess you would think that, well, maybe we still have a chance, right? Maybe we still have an opportunity. And then you also may be neglecting all your blessing that could be right in front of you, right? You know, your blessing could be right in front of you, but you're still thinking about this other person that obviously is, one, probably doing them, you know, and not thinking about you. And then now you kind of relegated yourself to neglect your blessing, and God will bless you, but you have to keep that baggage, you know, at the door and making sure that you're opening yourself up for opportunity. So yes, recognizing that heartbreak, and also making sure that that baggage is not carrying on into your adult relationships as well.
Absolutely. So that can be difficult, because, you know, when you really want something, we really want it when we really want it. So it can be hard to accept it, but it's always a healthy choice to acknowledge, no, this really happened and I need to deal with it. So that would be the first thing. The second thing that I talk about in getting over heartbreak is what we call transparency, or practicing honesty. So it's one thing to acknowledge the heartbreak or the breakup or whatever, that it actually happened. It's another thing to tell the truth about how you feel about it. Because what you'll see people say, women especially, because oh my goodness, Black women, horrible at this. We have this idea that we have to be this strong Black woman and nothing's going to tear us down. Yeah, girl, we know. But right now, you're hurt, right? So you need to be honest about that. So
and we don't want to let our friends know. We don't want to sometimes we don't want to let our families know, right? We isolate ourselves, right? In times, and we get in that rut where we just don't want to talk about it. And that time is, you should be going to church as well, you know, because, you know, God is going to help you get through it, right? So you don't want to neglect your spiritual, your faith, right? And you also don't want to neglect the people that are in your life and that can help you get through that situation. Now, I'm not saying go ahead and tell your business to everybody, because you have to be careful with who you tell your business to, right? Absolutely. But you know that person in your life that is, you know, for me, it's my mother, right? So my mother and I, we're actually like best friends, right? And so just figuring out who that person is that you can talk to, but you need someone to talk to get that off your chest. So I agree with that.
And I love that you bring up the relationship piece, because it's so critical. Yeah, there is a community of people around you that are present just to support you, but they cannot do it if they have no idea that you're hurt. They can't. You invite them into your healing process when you are honest. And that doesn't mean, like you said, tell everybody. Absolutely not. But it does mean you need to tell somebody, and you don't lie about how you're really feeling. That's
right. To get out of that denial, that stage of denial.
It is. So then the last thing I would say is critical to healing a heartbreak or getting over it is what I call practicing quiet, which is my favorite of the 3 steps, because it is the space where we clear all this other stuff out. If it's the wrong people's voices, if it's the wrong ideas or whatever, you have to sort of clear out the clutter so that you can create space for healing to happen. So, and it's hard. Thank you. So it's cool. This one is cool because it really requires you to be introspective. It's not going to play out the same for everybody. For some people, too much silence is going to be difficult. So somebody that kind of has sort of a history maybe of some mental health challenges or depression, you might not want to have too much silence, but you do need to make some space for God, so where you can hear God. That's the whole point. So it might mean cutting off certain people, and that sounds so horrible, but there's some people who, like, they really want to be helpful, but they haven't dealt with their own stuff. So really, when they're bringing you their advice, they are really talking to you about stuff that they haven't thought all the way through, and they're still trying to fix their own stuff. So it's really not about helping you, and they're not really in a position emotionally or psychologically to help you. So it's sometimes when somebody starts saying that, you might not want to hear this, but you might want to be careful of taking advice like that, because you need somebody that's able to adjust and kind of give you what you need so that you can get through it. There's a wonderful, I don't know if you remember that movie, I think it's called The Women, and there's I think it's Meg Ryan, her main character. Her husband's cheated on her. She's found out and she knows about it, but she hasn't told her girlfriends yet. She's told her mom, but not her girlfriends. And when they find out, they're all upset. And so when they confront her, like, do you know, we got to tell you about this. Your husband's cheating. And she's like, I know. And they get mad at her because hadn't done anything about it yet. And so they start going in on her, and she's like, cut it out. Like, listen, I need you to be here for me, but silently. Like, I don't need you coming at me, telling me what I need to do. You more mad than I am, you know? So you have to be careful of who you allow up close. So it's a balance. Yes, you need to tell the truth with some trusted people about how you feel, but you also got to create enough space so you can let God in. And so that might mean doing some other things to sort of care for yourself. One thing I like is spiritual direction. It's something that I do. And there's literally people who are trained. They go through hours of supervision and training in class so that they can learn how to help you spiritually care for yourself. And there's a website where you can just Google Spiritual Directors International, and you can look at the website and try to find a person in your area. That's how I found my spiritual director several years ago. And honey, she knows all my business. Okay, I can go in there and lay it all out. We're like 4 or 5 years in now. So she knows all my stuff, and she really helps me to think through, how is God leading me? What's the next step? What's the next healthy step I need to take? It's not therapy, but it is a sort of a spiritual care that is so, so useful.
Right. And I talked about this on another show of mine, and I talked about having mentors, having a personal mentor, a professional mentor, and a spiritual mentor, right? And once you have that person in your life that is just I'm sure that person is going to give you some professional advice, right, and some personal advice. But having that mentor that you can go to for as a spiritual outlet, right, and that person is qualified, right? You want to go to someone that's qualified. So how do we identify that person? How do we identify that person that is going to be our spiritual mentor? Do you have any advice for how to identify that person?
Well, I do. I mean, first of all, usually it's kind of apparent if it's going to be a mentor, like somebody that, I was just reading in Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In. She was talking about getting a professional mentor. Like, you should never be rolling up on somebody that you don't know at all. Like, that's just weird. That never works. Usually the person sort of emerges. There's already a connection. You can identify that they have some wisdom, they have some experience in the area. Like I say, for me, I did the Spiritual Directors International search. That worked out. But you always, just like with the therapist, you always want to make sure it's a fit. So if you sit down for an initial conversation and it feels off, something's weird, pay attention to that. I like to say it this way: honor the hesitation. Yeah. If something feels weird, then you need to, I don't think this is the way we need to go. So, you got to kind of pay attention to that. But obviously, I love how you say, find somebody qualified, because no, we're not just going to pick anybody.
I mean, find someone that's qualified, find someone even in your personal relationships as well. If you're married, I usually like to go to a person that is married, that has shown a history of, a committed relationship, that same kind of relationship that you kind of can aspire to, right? And not all relationships are perfect. No one's perfect, and no one's perfect, right? But you want to go to someone that's going to give you the truth, and someone that's going to live, help you, give you that advice that you need, and kind of help you through that experience as well.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
So now that we're talking about heartbreak and overcoming, right, and making sure, how do we make sure that this doesn't hinder our professional life? Because we want to have work and life balance as well.
Right. So as far as that, the biggest thing is to tend to it. I like to think of our heart as an emotional and psychological muscle that we are constantly working, throughout our lives. It starts from when we're kids. We have family, we have friends, and people that we are in relationship with. And so we're constantly working that muscle. Well, when you go through a heartbreak, it's taking quite a blow, and it hurts. Okay. And so what you want to do is make sure you're doing some of the things you need to do to take care of yourself. So one thing I think is to prioritize self-care in the process of working through a heartbreak. So that means whatever that means for you. So for me, that means I have to make sure that spiritually I'm taking care of myself. So I have to start my day with some form of devotion. Right now, I've decided I don't know if this is wise or not, but I made the decision I want to, over the course of my ministry, preach all the women in the Bible. And so I decided to start, obviously, reading all the stories of the women in the Bible. So I do that every morning. There's a couple other really awesome devotionals out there that I really, really like. One person I think is great is Dr. Tama Bryant Davis. She's on Periscope. She does a daily Periscope that she calls Spiritual Vitamins to get you going. And it is dope. Oh my gosh, you get your whole life. I usually listen to her on the way to work. She goes on Periscope every day. So she's a great person. There's all kind of forms, and there's more stuff, links about that on my blog. So I do that. Also, one thing I'm doing this year is taking one day a month for what I call spiritual centering. And so that's a day where I just push everything aside. I don't make any plans with anybody. It's a day for Arionne and God. It's like we have a day-long date. So the first one I did, I think it was January 24th, and I went to church at a different church. You know, I wasn't in my normal worship space, so I could just be present. I didn't have to be Minister Arionne. I could just show up. I worshiped there. I did a little shopping. I did, a little bumping around. I went to a vision boarding party to sort of get some clarity about what the year would look like for me. But the biggest thing is that day I keep my mind frame very open and stay in a very prayerful state. I am engaging God all day long. And when I tell you, like, it was so life-changing. It was the first time I'd ever done it. And then I realized, you know what? This was a Sabbath. That's what this was. So for me, it means taking Sabbath seriously so that I'm taking care of myself. And as I engage in that relationship with God, that's the creating quiet, right? So that I can receive what God is saying. What ended up happening, there was a class that they ended up teaching at this same church that I decided to take because I had been looking for a new Bible study. So if I hadn't have been there, I wouldn't have known that. So, and it's been really opening me up and pushing me in new ways. So, and some things I had specifically been praying about, God has started to answer. So for me, it means spiritual care. I think also taking care of your heartbreak means one way to help is to practice gratitude. I think very often when we are down and feeling horrible about our life situation, it's hard to think about things we're grateful for, but there are definitely things we can be grateful for. And so whether that's
small victories, right?
Yes, like, so you might not be grateful for the heartbreak, and you don't have to be grateful for that, right? But you can be grateful that ultimately, if this wasn't for you, that it has now moved on, because as you mentioned, now I'm a step closer to the thing I really want. I really want the everlasting love. So if this wasn't it, I'm glad this is gone. So
everything happens for a reason. I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And when you have this obstacle in your life, everyone's going to have an obstacle, and like my pastor says, it's either someone that's going to be in the obstacle, about to be in the obstacle, or just getting out of the obstacle, right? And so you have to realize, are you about to get in the obstacle? Where are you in that obstacle, right? And so how are you going to get out of that obstacle? But know that you have to find something to gravitate towards, someone to talk to, something, and that is God. That is your relationship with others around you, and healthy relationships. I want to promote healthy relationships, because not every relationship that you have is healthy. And that can be, your family, your friends, your coworkers, so making sure that you're prioritizing healthy relationships. And then also wanted to ask you, how do we, once we get out of that obstacle, how do we make sure that we're focusing on our building our business and our brand as well?
I think the big piece there is it's about keeping the priorities straight, because you have to remember the whole point is your purpose, your mission, your gift is so much bigger than you, right? So I remember when I was at the end of writing my book, I was just like running out of steam, but my best friend was like, girl, cut it out. You have to finish. People are waiting on you. Like, come on. So even when we're we've kind of worked through all this stuff, we have to keep in mind the whole point is to be a blessing to somebody else. People are literally waiting on you to do your thing, because nobody can do it quite like you do it, with the flavor you have, with the color you bring, with the way you shift the room, the atmosphere in the room. Nobody can do it the way you do it. So you have to keep in mind that that's the priority, right? So then, okay, if that's the priority, then I have to keep whatever it is I need to do. So if that means better planning, better strategizing, if that means building a team so that I have the support I need, so it's not all on me to do everything, that's a note to myself about that, so that you're sharing the work, so find ways to invite other people into the work, that's critical. Another thing I would say that's incredibly important to building your brand, and it's not something super obvious, but that is, and I would say, really evaluating your squad, so to speak, because you really need to have people around you who are going to seriously be supporting you, so that when you're in the dark space, when you want to give up, when you are sick to death of doing whatever, that they're like, you don't get to do that. Like, no, this is why
you, right? And I like how you said that people are waiting on you. We think that we're in it by ourselves, or we think that we're doing what we're doing for our own gratitude. No, God has blessed you to be a blessing to someone else. He truly is blessing you to be a blessing to someone else. Your gifts, if you don't use your gifts for the betterment of someone else, then you're being very selfish. You're being very selfish if you're not sharing your gift. And I go back to even in business, when, I'm very open to sharing my strategies and, with business strategies. Now, there's some things that I'm like, all right, you might not have to pay for, but, I think that you need to be kind of open as well with some of the business strategies and give back. I like how ebooks are becoming very popular, right, in business. And so if there's something that you're great at, your God-given talent, write an ebook. It doesn't have to be long. It can be a checklist. It could be a how-to. It could be just your words of inspiration. But put that on paper and pass that along to someone. Give your God-given talent, that gift that God has given you. Put that down on paper and pass it along. You could write it. You could write all that information down and pass it along to your nieces and nephews. It doesn't have to be business related, but I think that in order to build leadership, you have to leave a legacy as well. So you want to make sure that those that are in your circle are healthy, those relationships are healthy, and that they're helping you build and grow to your business and to help you grow professionally as well.
Absolutely. So squad goals are highly important.
I love that. So just talking about letting go, strategies to let go. Do you have any strategies to just let go of that pain?
I do. And one thing is, I have a little list here. One day I'm going to write, maybe this is the ebook. That's a good idea. I'm going to have to work on that. But here are my strategies. One, I would say, and this one could be kind of fun, a community prayer or community encouragement. So by doing this, you take like a span of the calendar, either it's a week or it's 2 weeks or maybe it's a month if you really want to be extensive about it. But you select some key people in your life that are going to, you can either have them call you and say something encouraging to you, or I would definitely recommend them praying for you on that particular day and whatever the specific need is for you. So I think that's one thing, to really involve other people. I would also say there's other traditional strategies like cold turkey, like, okay, I'm gonna just not talk to the person. Like if you're trying to get over a person, okay, I'm gonna just not talk to them. That can be difficult when you have to engage them. Either you work with them or you go to church with them or whatever, or you serve in some community organization. So it can be hard to do that sometimes, but if you can do it, go for it. I'm generally not that great at that, but it can work. It does work for some people. Sometimes one my pastor gave me years ago is gradually adjusting to the fact that the relationship is over. So it might not be that you can do it cold turkey. And this has worked for me before. I knew I needed to be done with this guy. This was years ago. But it's like I couldn't do it right away. So I just slowly pulled back. And eventually I was out of there. And it wasn't a big deal. And it was fine. I would also say, when you're feeling tempted to hold on to either the person, the pain, or whatever, or you're feeling a moment where you want to kind of grasp back at it, just take a moment, take a pause, and think about what your motivation is and why that's coming up for you in the moment, and maybe journal about it. Another way is a vision board, right? So that you can get an idea of where it is you want to go, so that you can remind yourself that this pain or this relationship is not that. So I need to let this go. So constantly seeing it, can definitely help. Also, affirmation statements are good ways too. Yeah.
My tip would be to be honest as well, and not expect the person to know what's bothering you or why you want to get out of the relationship or why you're letting go. And you can't assume that a person is a mind reader as well. So, and letting go of relationships that aren't healthy, I also recommend being honest. And sometimes people can't handle the truth, but I think that living in truth is kind of like the best medicine, and making sure that now you put the ball in their court. So much of that pain we keep, and we do not release that pain. And we don't, and when I talk about pain, we have things bottled up. We don't, we have things that we wish we could have said to someone, right? And we don't say it to someone. And when you do release, kind of the release in that energy, you release that truth. And now you kind of put that energy onto that person, and you're at, want to know from them, why did you do this? Why am I hurt? Kind of let them know that I'm letting go, and this is why. So they're not in the dark.
No, I 100% agree with that. And that was really for me, that's step one of how to get over heartbreak, is the acceptance, the acknowledgement, the telling the truth about what's really going on. So 100% agree with that.
I love that. So let's just kind of just talk about your book and how my viewers can purchase your book. And for watching today, we have a discount as well. So just tell us how they can access your book.
So the book, again, is Love Like I've Never Been Hurt, How to Heal from Heartbreak. It is available on my website, and that's ArionneYvette.com. So that's ARIONNE. YVETTE, but you can see that, I'm sure, on the title, ArionneYvette.com, and you go there, check it out. It's available. We'll get it shipped out to you. And again, yes, the viewers for today, or subscribers, will get $3 off the purchase of a book. And then also, you can get a Kindle version. So if you are an ebook person and you are not into this hard copy stuff, it is available on Kindle. And I don't have a discount code for Kindle, unfortunately, but it's $9.99 on Kindle. If you want to grab that, you can have it right now and start reading it. Absolutely.
And what is your email, so they can email you and let them know that they watched the show and subscribed, and they're looking for the $3 off of the book as well?
Absolutely. So what they can do, they can email me at ArionneYvette.com, and we'll get them subscribed. It's real easy. The other way there's also a subscription link on the website, so they can obviously jump in there and just give their name and email. But if they want to email me directly, that's Arionne at ArionneYvette.com. We'll get them on the list and definitely send out the code so they can get the discount.
And you're also on social media as well. And I want everyone to hop on over to social media after the show and send us your questions, and we'll have the answers for you. And just connect with us at Tabia Pope Show. And Arionne, you're at Miss Arionne Yvette?
Yes.
On Twitter and Instagram and Facebook as well. So thank you so much for watching another episode of the Tabia Pope Show. Until next time, share the love.